position on these proposed legislative issues. Committee members might come and go during the hearing. Hopefully today we don't have too many. It's a Friday. This is just part of the process. We've got bills and other committees. I ask that we abide by the following procedures to facilitate today's meeting. Turn off or silence any electronic devices you might have. When the time comes to testify, we ask that you move forward. Either the chairs in the front row in the center are the testifier chairs. Today is looking really good. The introducer will make the initial statements followed by proponents, opponents, and those in the neutral. Of course, today we're doing appointments. Closing remarks for the introducing center. If you plan to testify, please fill out the green sheet, write legibly, and turn it in when you come forward. If you want to just make a record of being here at the committee hearing, there's a white sheet at the back table that you can fill out. If you have handouts, be sure and bring at least 10 copies. If you don't have them, let us know. We'll have the pages make copies. If you wish to testify or are testifying, we ask that when you come up, state your name, spell your name, speak into the microphone so we get a good record. Today, we're going to go with the 5-minute light system. So you'll have a green light for 4, yellow for 1, and when it turns red, you're done. Now, that is only if someone is speaking, the ones that are being appointed or nominated for appointment. We're going to have as much time as we need to talk to you, so don't worry about that. No displays of opposition or support, vocal or otherwise, will be allowed. The committee members with us today will introduce themselves, starting on my right with Senator Conrad.
Good morning, Danielle Conrad, North Lincoln.
Good morning, Jane Raybould, Legislative District 28, the heart of Lincoln.
Good morning, Rita Sanders, District 45, the Bellevue Offutt community.
Good morning, Ray Aguilar, District 35, Grand Island.
John Lowe, District 37.
All right, and on my right, Dick Clark is legal counsel. On the left, on the corner, is Julie Condon, the committee clerk. Our pages today are Quinn and Ryan, back row over there. And with that, we will go ahead and move forward with our first appointment. And the first one up, Patrick Guinan. And this is to the State Personnel Board. Welcome to the Government Committee.
Thank you.
Normally, we're just going to have you let us get to know you and share a little about your thoughts on the appointment that you're about to be made to.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. My name is Pat Guinan. I am currently on the Personnel Board. I'm the chairman of the board. This is my second reappointment, so my third appointment. So I've been on for almost 8 years now. I'm a practicing attorney. I've been representing clients, mostly business, individuals and businesses. I'm a civil litigator for about 30 years now. Prior to my current position at Governmental Law LLC, I was at Erickson and Cedarstrom for 25 years, mostly in the commercial litigation area, but I've handled a lot of employment litigation as well. At Governmental Law, we represent the 83 counties that are members of the Nebraska Risk Management Association, and that can include about any issue that county government can get themselves involved in, whether it's currently what I'm handling a Voting Rights Act case for them. We'll do tort claims, civil rights, construction issues, employment issues we'll get involved in, but we do have outside counsel that handles most of the employment litigation for the counties. The Personnel Board, we obviously don't have a whole lot of involvement in the day-to-day activities of the Personnel Department. The Personnel Department is, integral to the state government. They are the ones that have the personnel rules. They control they are the human resources department for the state employees. They handle negotiations on all collective bargaining agreements. They do salary surveys every year. They present us with those salary surveys. They make state government competitive, not only with other state governments, but with private industry as well. These surveys are important, and it's a big chunk of their time. The staff is a very committed, well-organized, just a good running machine. It's a good department. I enjoyed knowing the people in that department. On the board itself, I mean, the most we get involved in really is with grievance appeals. We appoint hearing officers to do the fact findings and make recommendations to the board. Then we can either accept those findings, we can reject them, we can have rehearings if we like. Most of the time, our hearing officers do a really good job of presenting the record to us, of making their factual findings. The only times we ever really disagree with them is if we disagree with an interpretation of a collective bargaining agreement or with their application of a statute. That's generally where we get involved and maybe don't take their recommendation. Our decisions are then subject to appeal on petition and error to the Lancaster County District Court. We've had a couple taken up. We have one that's up right now. As a matter of fact, it's going to be kind of an interesting issue. But that's essentially what we do. That's essentially who I am. I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding my practice or what the personnel board does, or if you'd like some more personal information about my family or what I do for fun, my handicap.
All right. Well, Patrick, I think we probably learned more about state personnel board this morning. We know through a number of hearings. So thanks for kind of enlightening us there. So essentially you have oversight to kind of be that check to make sure things are functioning the way they should. And evidently you've done a pretty good job of that. You've been there 8 years as the chairman, and that's one of the areas we don't have a lot of folks complaining about. So, I mean, those are all good indicators. Let's see if we have any questions around the table. Senator Rabel.
Well, thank you so much for being here today and for your continued service and wanting to continue. Is it another 4-year term?
It'll be another 4-year term, yeah.
So I'm curious. So how many people are that serve on the state personnel board?
There's 5 of us.
And so when you hear these appeal cases, are you acting as a jury, or how does that work?
No, primarily we can if we want. We could have the hearing ourselves, and we can after our hearing officer has it, we can even just have all the evidence reoffered if we want to. Generally, we don't do that because our hearing officers, will spend days taking evidence and making consideration and sizing up the credibility of the witnesses and whatnot. But so our role generally is we review a recommended decision, their application of those facts that they find to the applicable rules or union contract clauses or whatever. We generally affirm those because I always talk to my board members as we're kind of an appellate level, even though we're really not. We're quasi-appellate. We do make quasi-judicial decisions, but I look at it as we generally don't change their findings of fact. We could if we want to based on the record, but they get to interview the witnesses. They get to hear what the witnesses testify. And so we generally just accept what they do, what they find. Where we come in is we want to make sure that the application of their facts are going to be consistent with how we read the contract clauses and how we read the personnel rules. So we act more as of a review of the grievance. We are the last level of appeal for the employees or for the departments if they want to appeal it. We're the last level before they can get to the district court. So that's really our position, is just to either accept what the hearing officer does, or we as a board just generally just make sure that they, like I said, apply their facts to the way we understand and read the personnel rules and the union contracts.
So how many are on the board, and do they all have legal backgrounds?
No, mostly there's 5 of us. We have to be split up between Republicans and Democrats or independents. So we have our split And we have three people that were previously, three board members that were previously in state government, whether they were, we have one that was personnel for the state patrol. We have another one that was a liaison with the governor's office at one time. And then the other one was, she was in the, she might have been in administrative services. We have another board member who is the human resources officer for Concordia College or York Community College, maybe. I apologize, I can't remember which one. And he is a lawyer. He graduated law school, but he's not a practicing lawyer. I'm the only lawyer that's on the board that is active in the practice. Well, I'm the second lawyer. I'm the only one that's active. So
Thank you. My last question, how often do you meet?
it's as needed, but I would say that on average we meet 6 to 8 times a year. And in fact, I have a meeting at 10:30 this morning. So I hope I get affirmed. So
Well,
Our
thank you
goals,
very much.
our goal is to get you to that meeting. Okay.
okay.
Senator Sanders.
Thank you, Chairman Brewer, and thank you for serving. It takes commitment, and the committee's relying on you, and so being reliable and attending is so important. So thank you for serving for 8 years. Any issues that you want to talk about? What's your challenges? Any more information that you would like us to know about serving on this committee?
No, I feel fortunate with the staff that we have, and our primary contact is Sean Davis, and they are just a great, skilled, committed public servants for the state of Nebraska. The communication with I'm the primary contact for the board on the communication, and their communication with me is just, it's streamlined, it's easy. They make our job really easy to make us look a lot better than what we pretend to be. They know the rules inside and out. Then we don't read the contracts or the rules as in depth as they do. We look at them on a case by case basis. So if an issue comes up with this rule or this regulation, that's where we get involved and we can interpret it. But they know those contracts, those union contracts. They know the personnel rules back and forth. And I don't know that there's a better team that's more educated on their positions than a lot of boards. They're just a good, well-run. They're up to date. They're contemporary on all the legal issues that face Human Resources Department, what they must do, and what they have to avoid with regard to whether it's progressive discipline or if it's discrimination or whatever the situation is. They have a very well-run crew. They've had some really nice advances too. I mean, their changes on maternity leave, especially in childcare for the state employees, was an initiative that was done a year or two ago, or a couple of years ago, I guess. And it was really to make state of Nebraska, the government, that much more competitive with private industry and attracting the talent that the government wants and needs, and keep them, because a lot of places and a lot of employers, you're dealing with childcare or maternity leave or paternity leave or whatever the situation is, can be an obstacle to some places. But when you give that benefit to the employees here, my understanding is it's just been a great benefit and a really nice marketing recruiting tool for real talented players to come to the state of Nebraska.
Thank you. Thank you for serving.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to see if we're going to get you that 10:30 meeting or not. Any more questions?
We'll get there.
All right, this may be a maybe. We get there.
It's a
Senator
promise.
Conrad.
I promise. Thank you, Chair. And I hope I'm not mispronouncing. Guinan.
Correct.
Is that right? Patrick Guinan. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Guinan. I'm familiar with some of your work, have read some headlines about your legal work over the years. And so it's nice to put a face and a name together. My question was just a little bit broader lens. So from your service on the personnel board, I know you take individual cases as they come up, but Do you have any sort of safety valve or mechanism available if, say, for example, you start to notice a pattern in practice from a certain agency where, gosh, it seems like there's a lot of red flags coming through here for unlawful discrimination that like kind of points to a broader kind of culture or leadership issue? I don't know if that's necessarily within your jurisdiction, but since you have such longevity on the board, I'm trying to get a handle on kind of how those broader issues may bubble up and how that would be helpful to stakeholders involved in oversight and administration.
Certainly, we encounter grievances from more departments than others.
Sure.
There are issues in certain departments that every department's going to have their own issues.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to throw the state patrol under the bus. No, I'm just
they
kidding.
don't have to- yeah.
No, we do. So, no, but yeah, certainly we see it. And I don't see it in necessarily in terms of, at least I haven't seen anything that indicates to me that there's any sort of discriminatory practices in the different departments. In fact, I don't know that we've ever handled one in the 8 years I've been there.
Okay.
I think most of the time it's, I think there's certain departments that have certain personality conflicts, and those grievances seem that when they come to us, I think sometimes they feel like they are a situation where they're just kind of the personalities might have bubbled over for a long time, and it's no different than in a private
Yes.
practice or
Yes.
private industry or whatever, that people just get tired, and so then they finally just hit the nuclear option, and they want to terminate somebody, and maybe they have not followed the progressive discipline, or maybe it just isn't severe enough where somebody should be terminated. That's usually where it kind of comes up to us. I think those letters of suspension and the 1 week without pay and those type of things, rarely see those. It's the terminations or the big long suspensions that we get, and I think those are really more of just, I'm tired of this person coming into my office every day, and I think they're wrong, and they just get to that point. But that's just that's just
Part of personnel.
that's any organization more than 2 people, right?
I think that's
But no, as far as discrimination or anything that I would consider a real red flag, no. Certainly there are departments that we see their grievances a lot more than other departments.
very good. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, any additional questions? I apologize for the dinging up here. Last night I was watching my grandson, and to preoccupy him, I gave him my watch, and he has put it into some type of a ding mode that I can't undo. So I went to the pages, because you always go to the youth. But the problem is, if they're like college students, they're too poor to afford an iWatch, so they don't know how to fix it. So I took it off thinking that it'll like make it think I'm not wearing it and won't quit dinging. So I apologize for that. I think I've got to correct it. All right, any additional questions? All right, thank you for your time. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you. All right.
Oh, yeah, he'll make the 10:30 meeting. All right,
Appreciate
All right.
it. Thank you.
you bet. Be careful out there and don't speed, okay? With that, we're going to invite up Colonel John. Welcome back to the Government Committee.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, we got paperwork. That's good. Make sure that the State Patrol always does the paperwork, right? Welcome to the Government Committee.
Me too.
Well, good morning, Chairman Brewer, members of the Government, Military, and Veterans Affairs Committee. My name is John Bolduc, JOHN-BOLDUC. I've been honored to serve as the Superintendent of Law Enforcement and Public Safety for the past 5 years, having been appointed by Governor Ricketts and confirmed by this committee and the legislature back in 2018. I'm equally honored to be reappointed by Governor Pillen and humbly submit my testimony before this committee for your consideration. Again, thanks for having me here today to discuss the progress the Nebraska State Patrol has made in the last few years as our outstanding team of sworn and civilian staff have performed admirably in their service to Nebraska. First, I'd like to outline my experience and qualifications for the role of superintendent. I'm originally from Maple Grove, Minnesota, where I was raised with my 6 siblings. In that environment, I learned the value of conflict resolution and teamwork. I graduated from Bemidji State University in 1986 with a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. I then attended the Basic Police Academy at Alexandria Technical College. I became a police officer in 1986 with the Maple Grove Police Department. There I served as a police officer, a training officer, detective, sergeant, and a SWAT team commander. I was appointed chief of police for the city of Mora in Minnesota in 1998, where I served until 2001. In 2001, I had the honor of being appointed by the late mayor of Brainerd, Minnesota, James Wallin, to the position of chief of police. I served in that capacity until May of 2010, when I accepted the position of chief of police and vice president of public safety at the Port of San Diego. That position, with the unique challenges of a port police organization, solidified my commitment to leadership development and cultural change within organizations. I had the privilege of leading a team with a complex mission that was really at the heart of national security from a local policing perspective. I served at the port until I came here in October of 2017. As you might imagine, I believe my professional experience more than satisfies the technical requirements of Nebraska Revised Statutes 81-2001, outlining this position. During my career, I had the opportunity to further my education by attending the FBI National Academy in 1999. I obtained a master's degree in 2014 and attended the National Executive Institute in 2020. I believe my experience and education continue to translate well into this position, as is demonstrated by our agency's recent accomplishments. And I'd like to highlight some of those. They include a sustained effort to address serious offenders across the state by increasing felony arrests annually by more than 30%, increasing the number of annual hours spent on community engagement by over 290%, increasing our recruitment and promotion of women and minorities in sworn leadership positions, the consolidation of operations in Lincoln from 4 facilities into 1 to increase efficiency, increase communication, and to address cultural gaps. Beginning the expansion of our state crime lab to increase public safety service to our customers throughout the state. Implementing new functions such as our technical crimes division, special operations, and a special investigations team, all of which provide needed statewide services to assist our partner law enforcement agencies. Increasing efficiencies in delivering services from streamlining concealed handgun permit renewals to detecting dangerous conditions on commercial motor vehicles on our interstates. Also, the creation of the new human trafficking hotline. All of these team accomplishments point to a high degree of staff competence and dedication. And it also portrays a very bright future for the Nebraska State Patrol. Personally, I look forward to completing my law enforcement career as superintendent of the Nebraska State Patrol. I can confidently say that in my 36 years of public service, I couldn't think of a better place to finish my career. I'd be happy to answer any questions the committee might have at this time.
All right, thank you, Carl. Well, let's run around questions. Senator Hunt.
Thank you very much. Senator Brewer had a great idea to do a culture study on different parts of
National Guard.
National Guard. Thank you. What are your ideas or thoughts around a culture study like that for the State Patrol, perhaps?
Well, through the Department of it, I don't know what his definition of a culture study is or what that looks like, but we do already through the Department of Administrative Services do an employee engagement study, which measures things such as morale, such as leadership, such as things within the organization that need improvement, and that's statewide. So that's goes across all of the agencies, and we look at those results, and we share those with our teammates, and we try to discern what are some things that we could improve on? And so in terms of culture, that tool has been very useful to us. This is the third year we've done it. And one of the things that keeps rising to the top in terms of here's something we can improve on is rewarding the positive behaviors that we want to see in our organizations. We certainly have awards and things for exceptional work, but just the day-to-day interactions, I think that's something that we can improve on and something that we've been challenging our supervisors. Make sure you notice the good work that's going on and reward it, because what gets rewarded gets repeated.
What's an example of like good work going on that should be more rewarded? So,
as you might imagine, there's a wide variety of tasks that we have to do in our organization. The life-saving awards and things like that, those are the obvious ones. When someone performs CPR or applies an AED and saves someone's life, those things, you get a little pin on your uniform and things like that. But the things that we're talking about are that just every day, making deadlines and finding efficiencies, just the day-to-day operations, the run the business type stuff that we're talking about. I think those are things that sometimes get overlooked. I mean, I tell our team every time I get a chance, look, we see the outstanding stuff. It really rises to the top. A trooper charging into a Target store, not even taking time to grab his rifle, knowing that there's an armed person in there. Okay, that's pretty exceptional. But the little things every day that I think we can, reward is just look, people come to work on time. Usually they're early, they get their job done. They are interacting with the public in a way that puts the state of Nebraska in a positive light. Those are the kind of things.
Okay, cool. So those are like administrative things and like task completion things. And what about issues of conduct and discrimination and the way these things affect morale? Where do those things come up in the survey that you guys do? If the top thing is rewarding positive behaviors, where do those kinds of issues come up in the list?
That actually doesn't appear on the list. It's not, that would fall under the, if I recall correctly, there's about 21 questions that are asked in the survey. And I don't know if you've seen it or taken it.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Maybe I should take it.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. And one of the things to talk about, I feel respected in the workplace. Questions like that. I feel like my contributions are valued. That's where those kind of things come out. And those have been very positive scores. But what's more important, if we want to address behaviors like that or detect behaviors like that, we have a number of systems that are already in place for that.
Okay.
We have an early warning system through our professional standards department, where if someone has a number of complaints that come from citizens, more than so many in a month or in a quarter, that kind of rises to the top. And so we want to take a look at that. We have an ethics hotline that employees can anonymously make a report electronically via voicemail through our HR department, and we advertise that widely. And if there's any issues where you see a teammate behaving in a way that's counter to our values and counter to our rules, they can report that behavior. So that's kind of where that falls.
Is that hotline and that voicemail the preferred channel to report that kind of thing?
Well, actually there's not a preferred method. We want any method at all. If somebody sees behavior that doesn't meet our high standards, we want to know about that. Now, it seems to be the one that gets used the most, but sometimes someone will just report behavior to a supervisor, and that's perfectly acceptable too.
What kind of protections are in place with that hotline to protect the anonymity of the reporter? Because I know in organizations, maybe more so in a law enforcement type organization or a security type organization that you see in any sector of life in government and industry, there's chain of command, there's hierarchies, there's these power structures in place that can intimidate or discourage people from reporting concerns.
Thank you, Senator. That's a very good point. And that's why we use that ethics hotline as a completely anonymous tool. There isn't a way to track back. If you do a website submission, there isn't a way to track where it came from. And a lot of those come through HR. They go to professional standards. They're brought to my attention. And so if it's a behavior that somebody has observed, and they certainly can leave their name if they want, like, hey, I witnessed this behavior, I'm concerned by it. That's the most helpful, because that person can be interviewed. What's the time, date, place, those kind of things.
Mhm.
But there have been anonymous complaints that have been successful in pointing us to a behavior that obviously is against our standards, and have resulted in successful investigations.
Would you be willing to work with the legislature on an examination of processes, or something like some kind of culture study? And I know that you aren't like familiar with the bill, and it's not affecting state patrol, but it's fresh in my mind because we just heard this bill a couple days ago
Oh, sure.
from Senator Brewer, and just making an examination of these processes and culture and morale. And I'll be frank, the reason I'm going down this line of questioning is because I've been contacted by between 5 and 10 members of the state patrol privately, and for some reason, many people in state agencies contact my office as whistleblowers, or that type of vibe, that type of thing. And they say, can you please look into what's going on here? I feel like I can't say anything, or this is happening and everybody knows about it, but nobody's doing anything. And for me, I mean, I'm just a shop girl who got elected, and people feel different ways about that. But like, a lot of this feels like out of my scope of knowledge and expertise. But when these things come to me, I feel, and then I have an opportunity to talk to you, I feel like it needs to be said. So I say that because many members of the State Patrol have brought concerns to me, and I wanted to note that, but also give you the opportunity to talk about these types of oversight and reporting mechanisms that you have in the patrol.
Great, thank you, Senator. Just to kind of put a point on that, I think that we do have great systems in place that honor anonymity, and I think those have proven to be effective. A number of, as I mentioned, a number of complaints have come through that and have been successfully resolved. So I would just encourage our teammates to continue to use those systems that are designed for that very thing. And out of 720 employees, we're going to have complaints that come up from time to time.
Yes.
But we want to make sure that we have the right culture and the right tools in place to address those concerns when they are raised.
And I want you to know I'm not putting blame on you or anything like that. I don't blame you for anything like that. I know regardless of how good our leadership is, people make choices
Sure.
that you can't control. I mean, I've managed teams. I've been an employer for almost 20 years, and I've had employees do stuff that I had to be responsible for, but like I would never have, none of that was in my control. And so I understand how hard it is to run. Well, I don't understand how hard it is to run a big agency or anything like that, but I can imagine. So thank you for answering my questions.
Thank you, Senator.
Right, additional questions? Senator Conrad.
Thank you so much, Chairman Brewer, and thank you. Good to see you again, Colonel.
Thank you.
Just a couple notes, and then I had just one area of questions that we had discussed previously that I just wanted to make sure to note. But I just wanted to commend you for your openness and your candor in reaching out to all stakeholders from when you first were appointed and continuing through today. I've really appreciated having an opportunity to have an open dialogue, even when we're pursuing different goals sometimes, because I think that's really a testament to your professionalism and public service. I also know that you, not only is your job hard on a good day, but you walked into, I think, an agency that was really working through a lot of challenges in terms of culture and personnel, and had some leadership issues in the past. So walking into all of that, it seems that you've made a very concerted effort to try and change the trajectory, which I think is commendable and impressive, especially as law enforcement is under increased scrutiny. So doing all of that at the same time is really more than a feather in your cap. Is really incredible. So the one area that I wanted to visit with you about, and not playing gotcha, we had a chance to talk about it very briefly when you were kind enough to reach out in advance of this hearing. But just if you could help the committee understand, for example, and I know how code agencies work and how you have to be responsive to the will of the governor's office in regards to how you handle your work. But I know there was a high profile issue during the course of your term with deployment of state trooper resources and personnel to the southern border. And I know that raised a lot of questions from Nebraskans across the state and across the political spectrum about, hey, wow, we are already kind of under-resourced when it comes to having state patrol in our communities to meet our public safety needs, and why are we footing the bill for this deployment? So it's well documented in the press, as is your response. I just wanted to provide an opportunity, if you could, to kind of help us understand, how that decision did impact your ability to provide resources in Nebraska to Nebraska citizens.
Great, thank you, Senator. So on the backdrop of that request is a normal, I guess they're more like one-offs, but the system of the EMAC system, the Emergency Management Compacts, is if a state has a need and they don't have the resources to fill that need, they can request other states to come in and help out. We've participated in a number of those over the years. Most recently, a number of our folks were deployed to North Dakota during a large event up there with the pipeline protests that predated my term here. We've been requested to go to help out with the hurricanes in the last several years. In most of those cases, we did not go because the needs were met before we could spool up the resources. We assisted the state of Minnesota with potential disruptions at their state capital prior to the Texas event.
Okay.
And then, of course, there was the EMAC that came from Texas. And you're right, that did cause a lot of concern with some folks. But basically, the request was, look, can state agencies send, in particular, law enforcement officers to assist us with this challenge at the border? When we get those requests, we examine the resources that we have. We look at the specific request. Some of the requests that were made by Texas DPS, we could meet those needs. Some of them we couldn't. Specifically, they wanted helicopters and pilots. We just didn't have the ability to meet that need. But we did put together a list of potential assets that we could send them. And that turned out to be 24 personnel plus equipment to go and assist the Texas Department of Public Safety in enforcing state law. And largely it turned out to be a humanitarian mission because most of the folks coming across the border were tired and hungry and thirsty. And it was kind of like, ta-da, we're here, now what do we do? And really it was just trying to help funnel people to the right places so that they could get help. If you heard some of the testimony of our team that was there, it was pretty incredible. I mean, we had babies born along the way. So you have a mother carrying a brand new newborn. Okay, what do we do with this? Okay, get them to the right resources. And the people of Texas were incredible. They were welcoming. They helped meet the needs of the various law enforcement agencies that were there. We're doing a tremendous job with helping the people who were coming across the border, again, hungry, thirsty, tired, in need. It was really remarkable. So it was much less of a law enforcement operation than it was a humanitarian operation. And so, yeah, that was the first time we'd done anything like that. I think it was really great for our team to go and learn how these things are conducted. Heaven forbid if we ever have a large scale event here in this state, whether it be a natural disaster or another need, we learned how to make the requests, how to be clear, perhaps more clear in our communication and what the needs are, what resources we need. And this process is very common in the fire service. It's very common with our National Guard. It's not as common for law enforcement resources to go to other states, but it does happen. Every few years, we'll get a request like this.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, just as, yes, a trip down memory lane, and there may be, maybe not, one of the troopers here that would remember in July of 1999, in a place called White Clay, Nebraska asked and received help. It was from tribal police, it was from the BIA, and the state of South Dakota, because we had a situation that had developed in White Clay where there was the distinct possibility of the town being literally burned to the ground. Now, I was there as the military commander with Special Operations Detachment working with Nebraska State Patrol. And I don't remember the exact number, but it was around 125 Nebraska State troopers that were involved on the ground there. I don't know how much of your badged force that is, but it was considerable for a town of 15 people. So we have gone to other sources to help us in the past. And so I can see how essential that is to have that ability to go back and forth and be there on either side of things. But just for those that weren't there, the roughly 50 or 5,000 members of the Oglala Sioux tribe that came south were allowed to protest, a handful of incidents, but in the end, virtually nothing happened. And we were able to get through that event as well as possibly we could have. But again, even though you weren't the commander then, they handled themselves very professionally in a situation that could have went south and been a horrible incident. And so, the potential to have situations like that are always there. Now, unfortunately, due to some decisions in this building, that's not a problem anymore in White Clay, and I hope it continues to be that way. But we hear issues now and then about someone who may or may not think the world is necessarily right in their eyes, and in a process to hear those complaints is essential. What Senator Hunt was talking about on the military side is I had asked that we look at doing what's called a unit climate profile. That is simply a snapshot. So in your case, if say a troop is changing the command and you wanted to get the pulse of, how's it doing? Any issues? Well, we have one for the military that can be for a company, it can be a battalion, brigade, however that is. But what we don't do is at a state level, take a look at, is HRs, is all the key elements that everybody has to work on, are they performing the way they should? Because sometimes the units are doing just fine, but they're not being taken care of from above. So that's what she had referred to there. And that's kind of what we've been asked is would it be proper for us to maybe every few years get a check to make sure that if there's an internal problem, because even more than the state patrols, the military is a very closed society for the most part, as far as anyone really feeling comfortable ever stepping out of that realm to say anything about an issue. So just as a reference with what a unit climate profile is.
Appreciate that.
Okay, any other questions for the Colonel? Senator Rabel.
Thank you, Colonel Bolduc. It's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you for your years of service. So we know workforce shortage is a real problem. Can you tell us how the State Patrol is managing in attraction and retention?
Great. Thank you for the question, Senator. This is certainly top of mind for our organization right now, as it is for law enforcement agencies across the country. This is a national trend, shortage of workers. Frankly, it's in every industry right now, but it's really been highlighted in public safety in the last few years. We have fewer people entering the profession nationwide. for a variety of reasons. We can speculate on what some of those are. The good news is we're getting some really, really quality candidates coming through our process. We just don't have enough of them. So some of the things that we're doing to address that, we've doubled the number of camps that we're holding every year. We used to have one per year, and we'd get anywhere between 15 and 30 folks into that training cycle. Now we're holding 2 camps a year. We're getting about the same number of people, but we have to work twice as hard to do it. We basically tried everything new in the recruiting world, targeted recruiting, advertising, using social media, using digital advertising in different parts of the state where we're trying to reach certain demographics. We are recruiting heavily, transitioning vets from the military. That's been a great source for some quality candidates for us. We're visiting just about every college in the state, community college, four-year colleges, private colleges, public universities, even out of state. I personally have traveled to the home country of Minnesota to recruit from some of the universities up there. And, you know, the good news is we're getting a little bit of traction with every one of those efforts, but we need more. So the good news is for anybody who might be watching this today, we're hiring. Our application's open on Monday for a camp that will start shortly after the 1st of July. We have 15 camps, 15 recruits in camp today. For the first time ever, 1/3 of that camp are females. And of those candidates, 3 of those are minorities. So our recruitment of diverse candidates is getting better. We have a long ways to go, but we are reaching a broader audience and we're getting good people. We just need to get those numbers up. Certainly the labor contract that was recently signed that will take effect July 1st will help us be competitive with other agencies in our state. And it's not going to be the magic formula, but it's definitely going to help.
Terrific. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, that was a great question. If we were to take a look, a snapshot of how many Nebraska state troopers that you have on the road doing the day-to-day mission today, and we're to compare it with, and I know it's before your time, but 10 years ago, because we're looking at census to census, we know that we gained about 180,000 people. So 2010 to 2020, would we have gained a sufficient number of troopers, or would it be fewer troopers?
So Senator, thank you for the question. I believe in 2010, the numbers would be about what they are today. I think you have to go back to about 2000, where we had authorized sworn strength of about 520, give or take a couple. Today, our authorized sworn strength is 482. And now, I'm not going to sit here today and say that that's not enough or that doesn't meet the needs. With 482 on the books and about 60 vacancies, I'm going to a retirement party this afternoon, so perhaps it'll be 61 or 59 by the end of the day. It changes every week. We have retirements all the time. We definitely become more efficient in the last 10 years. I can't say that we're doing more with less because we're doing, the workload increases. But there are efficiencies that come with technology. Certainly we are more technologically savvy than we were 10 years ago, certainly more than 20 years ago, how we deploy resources and those type of things. So if you want to compare apples to apples, if we're at full staff right now at 482, in fact, I would consider full staff to be probably 460, 465, because you're always going to have people transitioning in, transitioning out. 20 years ago, we had some very large camps. Those folks are coming up on retirement, and we just need more coming in the door than those going out the door.
Well, and one of the concerns, obviously, is that as those numbers come down, you've got certain requirements where the population is that you really can't get around. Where the population isn't, our problem is I got counties that have a sheriff, maybe a sheriff and a deputy. And that area is 20,000 square miles. And literally you get to the point where an accident, whatever type of event that requires law enforcement assistance, it takes so long to get a response. And so I worry as those numbers dwindle, that disparity will become worse to where, we're really going to have to face the fact that, and we're doing the same thing with our emergency services too. Our ambulance crews are wearing out. They're folks that have done it a long time. They're getting long enough in the tooth that they can't do it anymore, but there's no generation coming up to do it. So I have an area between Gordon and Valentine that doesn't have ambulance service because there's no one left to man the ambulance. Well, I don't want to see that of the state patrol, that we just don't have enough people to put in those more remote places like a Cody or Rushville or somewhere like that. And so what are your thoughts on that? Is that a concern, or do you think the distribution is fair?
Well, thank you for the question, Senator. It is a great point, and it is a concern of mine. I've made no secret of this. I tell it to our team all the time. A vacancy in a rural part of Nebraska has a far greater negative impact than a vacancy in the Omaha metro area. So we have to make sure that we're applying our resources appropriately. As it stands right now, the vacancies in Omaha and Lincoln are easier to fill. And really it comes down to choices when we're recruiting. If a potential recruit, say coming out of the military, coming out of the university, they want to work for us. But if we tell them, they may have a family, they may have kids, they may have a connection to, a certain community. And if they say, well, if I can't work there, I might go work for Lancaster Sheriff or LPD. We have a decision to make. We'll hire those people. Now, the way to combat that is something that we've been doing the last several years. We're really trying to recruit people from some of our rural communities who are from there. They want to stay there. It's not uncommon for a trooper to get hired from Omaha or Lincoln, work out west for a few years, and decide, more cattle than people, not my jam. So they want to move back. And under our labor contract, they have the ability to do that if there's a vacancy. So that does happen. We've had some success in places like Chadron. We've recruited from the university there. We've hired a number of troopers who come out of that university and want to stay in that area. So we know that model will work, but I also have to look our farming and ranching partners in the eye and say, I'm trying to recruit your kids away from the farm or ranch to come work for us. That poses a challenge too. So we do have our eye on that. We know that the vacancies in the rural areas are impactful in a negative way, but I'm proud to say that our team has made the adjustments. There are occasions where response times are long, no question about that. But we've tasked our troop area commanders to take a look at where the resources are deployed. And even those that are shorthanded, they still have to get the mission done. So I think we're definitely up to the task.
So when you have a class graduate, you give them assignments out of the academy where they're going. And that's not an option. When you say you're going to X, that's where they go. So like in the military, it'd be like getting assigned to Bismarck, North Dakota, if you end up in Cody or Gordon or somewhere, because if you really don't want to be there, it's kind of a harsh assignment.
Thank you, Senator. So the way it works now, and we've made these changes and it's actually helped with our numbers, there's a certain percentage of our recruits that they are promised a duty station when they sign up, okay? Because the choice for us is they're either going to go to OPD or they're going to come work for us, right? Just as an example. That's about a third of them. A third of them will have like a preference. Well, I'd rather work here or there, we'll give them somewhere in their top three choices. And about a third of them are what we would consider free agents. I'll go wherever. I'm just happy to be here. And those folks usually end up where we have those vacancies in some of our rural communities.
Those are what we call infantrymen.
Yes, Senator.
All right. Additional questions for the Colonel, Senator Rabel.
One final question. How many canine officers are on the patrol?
Good question.
Thank you for the question, Senator. I know that we have one vacancy, perhaps two, but I believe the number today is 9.
9.
And they're spread out across the state.
Okay.
And they do exceptional work. They are busy and they put a lot of miles on the car, because when a sheriff in Colfax County calls and says, hey, we have an incident, we need a dog, we get one there. It might take a few hours, but we get one there. And we're really proud of that team. They do great work. And by the way, if you ever come to our office and you look at the pictures on the wall, we have pictures of people and we have pictures of dogs. Everybody loves the dogs.
Great, thank you.
Speaking on behalf of a dog lover, I feel how that is where I would go too. All right, any other questions? Yes, Senators.
Thank you, Chairman Brewer, and thank you, Colonel, for serving and your willingness to continue to serve in that capacity. Just maybe it's a conversation we should have offline, but District 45 is home of Offutt Air Force Base, and we do see a lot of special forces that get out and stay, or they want to stay. Is there something the legislature can do to make that transition smoother? I had a bill for reciprocity for spouses that were teachers. It's just a thought.
Well, thank you, Senator. And by the way, that as I understand it, that bill on the reciprocity for teachers and others was very well received. We did have a discussion. I think there was another bill a year or two ago that talked about military police training as a reciprocity. That isn't in place right now. The challenge is not every military police MOS is the same. Some are actually purely security. Some are actually law enforcement on bases. And that experience is very valuable. We expect that anybody coming to the State Patrol will go through our training program, which is a full 6 months, regardless of experience. We think it's important to have everybody trained to the same level. And again, we've had a number of military vets with some really outstanding law enforcement experience in the military come to us, go through our training, and have, frankly, excelled. Some of it may be a bit repetitive, but we think it's necessary in order to maintain our high standards.
Thank you. Let us know if there's anything we can do.
Thank you so much, Senator.
And on Senator's line, of course, the Air Force, because they have such a requirement for security, the Army doesn't necessarily do. The Army has military police, but a lot of times that's just to keep track of soldiers, not to secure missile sites and air wings and all the things they have. So numerically, the Air Force does have more people that are in the capacity of security. And there is a job fair they do with, I don't want to say it's quarterly, as folks come out, they come in and then they try and herd them to a particular location, jobs and all that. We might see if we can get you guys hooked up to be there. And, a lot of them, if they're already doing law enforcement, it's obviously a love they have, and it might be an easier transition to nab them because they're already in Nebraska, so they won't be shocked at the cold or anything else. All right, any other questions? John Lowe.
Thank you, Colonel.
Senator.
You mentioned retirement. How many troopers are on their way to becoming retired?
Counting myself, I got 2 years left. We lose about 15 a year to retirement. That's about our average. There are some years it's a little higher, some years a little bit lower. So, certainly one a month. And that's just our normal cycle of, typically between 25 and 30 years, sometimes longer, depending on when they entered service. So that's been pretty constant. Certainly since I've been here, we're losing one a month to retirement.
Okay. No, a good friend of mine was just in the last graduating class for the State Patrol, and so I'm glad to see Clarissa made it all the way through and has joined with you.
Absolutely. She's doing a great job for us up in Omaha.
Good. All right. And your training in Brainerd, did that help you becoming superintendent of Nebraska?
Well, you mean weather-wise?
Yeah.
It's far worse in Brainerd, but it's a lot better in San Diego, so I have to kind of strike a balance.
Yeah, it was kind of a brutal change, wasn't it? All right, any other questions? All right, Colonel, thank you for your patience. Thank you for your questions. This has been enlightening and we appreciate everything.
Thank you very much.
And we appreciate your troopers here in the building keeping us safe.
Oh, you bet, sir. They do a great job.
Yes.
They do.
Thank you.
All right. Now, we are up to the last of the Mohicans. I can say that. John, welcome him back to the Government Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate being here, and thank you for all your committee's time and attention. Good morning. Chairman Brewer and members of the Government Military Veterans Affairs Committee, my name is John Hilgert, Johnhilgert. I'm the Director of the Nebraska Department of Veterans Affairs, and I want to thank Governor Pillen for reappointing me to this position. Thank you for your time and your consideration today in advancing me to the full floor and confirming this appointment. Some background on me. I was born in Omaha. I went to Holy Cross Grade School, Daniel J. Gross High School. I have a finance degree from the University of Nebraska, Lincoln, and a law degree from Creighton University School of Law. After graduating from Creighton, I joined the United States Army. Most of my service was with the 1st Infantry Division stationed in Fort Riley, Kansas, serving in the Judge Advocate General's Corps. I deployed with the division during Operation Desert Shield and Operation Desert Storm. After leaving the Army, I returned home to Omaha, where I worked for Catholic Charities for the Archdiocese of Omaha for nearly 10 years. I was appointed to the Nebraska Legislature by then Governor Ben Nelson in 1995 and was successfully elected in 1996 and 2000. I've been active and I'm a member of several veterans organizations, including my trade association, which is the National Association of State Directors of Veterans Affairs. I served as their president for NASVA in 2019 through 2020. I had the honor of hosting the annual training conference in Omaha, as well as testifying before the Joint Committee on Veterans Affairs in the United States Congress twice. I've been active in the Boy Scouts. I served as a member and chairman of the board for the Metro Area Transit Board of Directors in Omaha. I've been the director of the Nebraska Department of Veterans Affairs since 2001, originally appointed by Governor Mike Johans, then retained by Governors Heineman and Ricketts, and now Governor Pillen. In the last 22 years, it's been exciting, it's been challenging, and frankly, an honor. I truly believe our agency has the best mission in the state. We honor, support, and advocate for the men and women who have served our nation, who have put their safety on the line to defend our freedom, and have come home injured mentally or physically, and who have sacrificed to make the good life possible. It's not just those who served, but those families who have kept the home fires burning, who've supported them when they were away, and who welcomed them when it's time to come home, or who maybe didn't get the welcome to, and maybe didn't get to welcome their loved one home and are now Gold Star families. Every day at NDVA brings something different, but the end goal remains the same, to serve those who have served. It's hard to find a more noble mission than that. Currently, our agency is the 4th largest code agency of the state, with nearly 800 teammates working across Nebraska to serve our state's veterans and their families. A majority of those teammates work in one of our 4 veterans homes located in Bellevue, Norfolk, Kearney, and Scotts Bluff, where we provide care to veterans and their eligible family members. At the Nebraska Veterans Cemetery and Alliance, we offer memorial and interment services. Our state service office is made up of accredited veteran service officers who help veterans and their families to apply for state and local benefits, as well as navigate the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs benefits process. At our central office, we administer state benefits such as Nebraska Veterans Aid, waiver of tuition, Vets Get Pets, adoption, and Vets Get Pets adoption reimbursements. We maintain the Nebraska Veterans Registry, which connects the Nebraska Department of Motor Vehicles for veterans' driver's license and military honor plates. We provide support and direction to the home, cemetery, and state service office. In my time as director, we have remained veteran-focused. We've worked to reach more families and veterans across the state, to do a better job serving our state's veterans and their families, and to grow and expand in the ways that we serve them. Our agency has enjoyed incredible support from the legislature, the governor's office, all 4 that I've served for, the veteran service organizations, the VSO leadership throughout the state and communities around our homes and cemetery, and from, of course, the citizens of Nebraska in general. We've built a great team that is focused on excellence, focused on the future, and more importantly, focused on the veteran. It's an honor to lead this agency in the last 22 years, and I hope you'll grant me the privilege of continuing to do that job to lead this amazing team. That concludes my testimony, and certainly answer any questions that you might have.
All right. Thank you, John. Let's see if we got questions for you. Sir Aguilar.
Thank you, Chairman Brewer. Director Hilgert and myself, history goes back quite a ways.
Yes, it
I
does.
can remember when he was a young freshman in the legislature. And since that time, I believe I was serving on the government committee when he was first appointed to his current position. And I personally want to thank him for his dedication and getting through the struggles that have existed in that department, you know, all the way back from moving the veterans home from Grand Island to Kearney and the struggles that come with that, to the staffing issues that come from the pandemic. How you got through that, I don't know, but you did so with a smile on your face. I appreciate that.
Not always.
And even the issues that exist today that we're still working on and will always keep working on. And the respect I have for you, because through all this, your love for the veterans has been unmatched throughout. And I encourage everybody to vote for this young man because he deserves every bit of it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sir Aguilar. I'd have to chime in too. I know this summer, Senator Ergman beat you up pretty good on an issue out west. And I guess the barometer I use to decide whether someone is doing their job or not is when a problem is pointed out and they figure out a solution, resolve it. It's when you let it fester and it becomes one of those things that makes, you know, everything not work right. And you have reacted and made the changes, got the right people. And I think Ray said it well. There were some really big challenges with getting Kearney open and going, making the transition. But just to kind of share with everything, I had a couple of folks who were in one of the facilities and had some concerns. I shared it with John, and he not only went out to fix it, but went to personally meet with them and talk through what their concerns were and making sure that what he did was actually fixing the problem. Not many folks that are in a position as a director is going to go all the way down to the human level in a home, eyeball to eyeball with someone and say, hey, how can we make your life better? What can we do to fix it? I mean, you're truly blessed when you find someone who actually cares that much. So thank you for what you do. Let me see if we don't have any more questions for you. Well, looks like we do. Senator Lowe?
Thank you, Director. And thank you for what you do for the veterans, especially out in the Kearney, Grand Island, and the Central Nebraska Veterans Home, and trying to get that to where it needs to be, because it's a huge effort when it's tough to employ anybody because every business is short. How about the military and veterans student centers in our colleges? Are they being received well? Are they working out well? What can we do to help the veterans become educated and join the society once again once they return?
Well, a couple of things, Senator. Certainly, they're not under our preview as a state agency, but we do work closely with them, and we have a lot of references going back and forth. When there's request for a state service officer or a benefits fair to be held at a community college or a college or a university, we'll certainly participate in that. Nebraska's been blessed. Well, first of all, I have an amazing team, so I just am the part of the team. But traditionally, Nebraska ranks very, very high on the student veterans involvement. And the University of Nebraska, Omaha, University of Nebraska, Lincoln, and others, they traditionally remain very, very high. Central Community College, others, I could name them all. So there's a high level of engagement. There's a lot of people looking for veterans to hire. And If you're listening to this right now, and if you're a veteran and if you're unemployed, please contact our office. I'll certainly try to hire you first because I still have some openings, but I know the colonel will hire some as well. I mean, they're sought after. People understand that veterans that they have the training, they have a discipline, they show up for work, they have a great work ethic. And Nebraskans generally have that. And to put the moniker veteran on top of a Nebraskan, I think you really get a special prospect to interview for a job. We also have done something which is kind of interesting, is we have an annual welcome home picnic, if you will. I was walking over to the governor's office one day, and it happened to be a Thursday or a Friday, I forget which, it was years ago. And I was looking at the governor's mansion, and they're setting up the pavilion and whatnot for the tailgate parties. It's a tradition. It's had decades and decades we've had these tailgate parties. And I go, well, those things are set up in advance. So I asked the governor, I said, can I borrow your backyard? And I mean, you have this set up, you have all the chairs and tables. So what we do is we invite every veteran and their family that has been discharged for the 12 months prior to a backyard barbecue at the governor's mansion. And it's turned into kind of it's a neat tradition. And we get a couple hundred people there. I have hired from those people that have gone there. And it's a little sneaky because we don't call it a benefits fair. It's a backyard picnic kind of thing. But what we do is we have different tables. We invite different state agencies, veterans groups, and other veterans organizations to be dispersed at tables throughout the area. So, the kids can be playing, cornhole or something like that. And then dad can be talking or mom can be talking over here to a potential job prospect with the Department of Labor. And that's been very, very well received. We're going to continue that hopefully too. So there's just a lot of welcome home ideas. Every veteran that comes back to Nebraska, we mail them a large packet of information, not from the USVA, how to contact our agency, how to contact a state or a county service officer, welcoming them home. We have a QR code. So when they pop that, we can keep metrics. We've over the last 8 years, I've learned to count things, right? So we count those and we have metrics there. And so we can see how many people are using it, and that's very well received too. So I think there's a lot of effort, and I think it's very successful. I think people feel welcome, and we're always looking for new ways. And there's a few ideas I have that I might throw out there in the next year or two.
Thank you. All right, additional questions? Sarah, you got one?
Thank you. I don't have a question, but I would be remiss to not thank you as well for your service to Nebraska throughout your career. And I also, of course, want to shout out your daughter, who's become like an Instagram friend of mine. And you should be proud of your work and also proud of your children.
Senator Caroline texted me immediately prior to this hearing and said, my friend who's a page said, hey, your dad's getting confirmed today. So she wanted to wish me luck. And thank you for the support of you and the entire body that you give to these pages. It really helps and gives them another dynamic part of their education. And so thank you for having the program. Thank you.
Right. Senator Ray Bull.
Okay, Director Hilgert, thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me. And in our discussion, you talked about veterans' homes and capacity. So, and the workforce shortage that you're experiencing. When it comes to veterans' home and forecasting the needs and the space and the availability, what do you see in the future for our veterans? Do you have the capacity and like where you think it's going? And then if we don't, can veterans get placed in other nursing home facilities?
Well, definitely. Most of the veterans that come into our veterans homes are coming from another long-term care facility, either at a lower acuity or the same acuity. And there's some that do come from the homes. They're private residents, whether in an apartment or house. We have a waiting list. We have bricks and mortar, beds and sheets, but we're looking for more staff. About approximately 170 openings right now. Our budget that we had submitted, and that it's part of the governor's budget, does fund what we believe we're going to be able to hire over the next biennium. So we're going to keep hiring. As we're able to hire, we will admit more until we're at full capacity. Projecting out, I saw a historical document. I don't know where it is right now, but when I first took this job, I was going through the files, looking at things, and it was about veteran population. At the time, we had probably 148, 150,000 veterans in the state. We still had a number of World War II veterans. And I looked at this document from the USVA, and it said that we have 26,000 veterans in Nebraska. And I looked at that document, flipped over to what it was, and it was written, I think, in 1962. And they did not anticipate Vietnam. They did not anticipate the Gulf War. They didn't anticipate. The only people that don't, believe that we're going to have more veterans is the VA and the clergy. I mean, we're going to have veterans forever. The call to serve and the call to defend this nation and her interests around the globe is going to be continuing. You don't have the battleships where you have 5,800 sailors anymore. They're smaller and you have fewer people, but you're always going to have the veterans. I think that our state is adequately, at this point, is adequately built, the infrastructure regarding veterans homes and so forth. So we do have the capacity. We need more, we need to have the staff. We need to hire more. And that's a multifaceted issue as well. We appreciate the administration's support and continuing support for additional salaries and so forth for our teammates. But to grow Nebraska is something that we're going to have to do in order to care for not only our veterans, but teachers and state patrolmen and everyone else of the shortages that we're facing. So I don't believe we need to build more homes. I think we always should have an eye towards modernization and trying to make things a little bit better where we can. And there's federal assets out there that we can access when those days come.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Sanders.
Thank you, Chairman Brewer. Thank you for serving and your willingness to continue to serve. I've known you for about 20 years now. And it was very accidental because you list your accomplishments and your achievements, but not some of the other things that you go above and beyond. So my husband and I started a senior retirement complex, and our very first Veterans Day event, it's in Bellevue. We need to do this. And I'm not sure how you even heard about it, but you showed up at our first annual, and that's always stayed with me. And
I remember
down
that
the
day.
road, we've been able to work together many times. So you're always in the background doing more than what you list. And for example, today in the Warner Chamber, there's a wonderful veterans event. So I want to thank you for that. If there's something we can do as a legislature, please let us know.
I will certainly do that. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right. Any additional questions? No?
I'm
John,
feeling
thank
left
you.
out, but I
Thank you
second
so
and
much.
third everything that's been said.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Before we wrap things up, are there anyone here to testify? All right. In that case, we will close our appointment hearings for the Government, Military, and Veterans Affairs Committee, and we'll close our hearings for the morning.